So where were we?
Kasama pa siya.
¿That's okay? Ah, what's your name?
My name is Mary Dietemar.
How old are you?
I'm 62.
Do you remember when you were young?
Oh yes.
Have some easy story about something?
I remember growing up having to deal with segregation, where the black people were separate. Everything, they had to sit at the back of the bus. They had their own bathrooms, separate from the rest of the people. They had their own water fountains. And they were labeled for black people. I think it said Negroes on the sign. That was not a nice thing, but I grew up with that. I grew up thinking that we were better than the blacks. I also grew up thinking that the whites, the Anglos, were better than us. So there was that three-level thinking, in my thinking.
Where did you live?
I was born in Corpus Christi, Texas. And Texas is a state that borders with Mexico. So in Texas, there's a lot of Mexicans. So we spoke Spanish. But my dad wouldn't allow us to speak English in the house. He would say, if you want to speak English, you have to go out in the street or outside with your friends, but not here in the house. Because he didn't want us to lose our Spanish.
Right now, the people play maybe games on the computer, but in 20 years ago, what kind of game do you play?
20 years ago? Or when I was little?
When you was maybe 14 or 15 years old.
Well, we played outside on the street in our neighborhood. We played baseball. We almost always played baseball outside. And if not, then we'd just hang out in the yard. Our friends would just hang out outside. I mean, we didn't have computers. And our TV was black and white. It wasn't in color. And we listened to music, like record players. We had records. They were big, 33 and a third inch records, or 78s, or 45s. Those were our records. We had to put it on the machine, record player, and play music.
Do you think that technology is important right now?
Oh, the technology has skyrocketed. It's tremendous. If my grandmother was here right now, she would just think that the world was coming to an end because it's so advanced. It's just too advanced. She would have died.
It's too difficult for you to use technology, or
I'm sorry?
it's difficult to use the technology.
Is it difficult for me to use the technology? I would say somewhat, because I did work in the workplace for 26 years in a big company, the electric company, and we used computers, but the company was so advanced that they made everything ready for us. All you had to do was key in whatever you needed and it was there for you. I didn't have to download, I didn't have to add any applications to the computer, nothing. It was all there for me. So now I find it difficult to learn. I think I don't want to learn how to download applications or mess with the computer. Even the iPhones and the smartphones. They're too complicated. No, 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 no.
What happened with the woman in the past?
The women in the past were very subservient. They were housewives, first of all. They stayed home and they took care of the kids. And when we got home from school, mom was always there and you could smell the food cooking, and that was nice. Now, the kids have their own key to the house and they get home and they sit in front of the TV or their Xbox or whatever. Both parents are working now. And so I think that's why there's a lot of delinquency in the States. I don't know what it's like here in Peru. But I do see a lot of unity with the Peruvian families compared to the States, because in the States when you turn 18 you can't wait to get out the door. You leave the house. So that's the goal.
What were your events more important in your life?
What kind of events? Besides the recent one, which was 9/11, where the Twin Towers were attacked. John F. Kennedy getting killed, that was a big disappointment or a sad moment in my life. I was a teenager. Another thing is seeing the hippie movement, and my dad would say, don't even look at that when they would show something on TV, because the hippies were so carefree. They didn't want to conform to what was status quo. They didn't want to conform to what the government would say, or they felt they didn't have to work, or they made their own communities. And if somebody had something, they would share. Everybody shared. And they dressed differently, so you would easily recognize it because they all had long hair, especially the guys, and they wore bandanas and psychedelic clothing, tops, whatever. Very, they felt they were like always making peace, and that was their sign. Peace, brother. But they were into drugs. I mean, marijuana was a very popular thing to do back then.
Maybe do you want to perform to me?
Study about your life.
Do I have to study? I don't understand.
Do you have a story about her life?
Anécdota in English, anécdota.
Antidote.
Funny.
Well, one thing I was told the other group was that our house was by the railroad tracks. And in my days, the train would come by every day. And it was a giant, to me, it was a giant black train. And it had a smokestack that the smoke was just billowing. It was just so huge, and it scared me. And when I would hear the whistle blow, I knew the train was coming. And I would run to the house, because we always played outside. So I would run to the house to go inside, but my dad would lock the door, so I couldn't go in. And he would be laughing because I was scared of the train. So he used to do that to me. And what else? Can't think that fast.
What has been your memorable experience?
What has been memorable experience?
To date, need to see my grandchildren. One is 9, well, one is 22, one's 9, and one is 5. And they all know everything about computers and Xbox, and they can tell me about the computer. And but I just, my most memorable time that I can think of is when I had my children and growing, seeing them grow. And just the different lifestyle that they had compared to my lifestyle. I don't think they appreciate it.
What do you think about Obama? Obama is the first president of
First black president.
what is your opinion about that?
Yeah. I didn't care that he was black or white. There was a big deal made about it. That in our era, we were going to have a black president. But I didn't vote for Obama because I didn't feel he was the best candidate. So I voted for McCain. And I hope he doesn't get reelected. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry.